pharmacology. It's okay. This is from personal experience, so you can take my word for it or not. I don't care. No. So basically, with coffee, right? So coffee's got some really powerful stuff generally by itself. So you can actually enhance it. If you take a little peppermint, for example, into coffee, you have a much stronger, like, it'll wake you up. It helps your lungs. If you had asthma and you did that for a long time, it like did little peppermint into the coffee long enough, you actually would find you need your medicine a little less over time. Oh. So it's a potent breather, right? So that's one way you can use coffee. What I'm doing right now is basically it's a mood enhancer. I have honey, I have vanilla, I have a touch of coffee. The only side effect with me when I take coffee, if I take too much of it, I become a little bit more of an asshole because I tend to be a little bit more aware of how the world, like, you become like you're just aware, like, just like you have all these, like, you're more aware and you're thinking things through a lot more. So that's why the vanilla is there, because the vanilla is like
the mellow.
Yeah, it mellows you right the fuck out. That's right. So you got it, right? It mellows you right the fuck out. So you're like, I'm not an asshole anymore. I'm just like, I'm good. I feel good. I'm smart. And again, because coffee is such a simple, cheap thing, right? It's cheap as fuck.
Right.
So the big thing about that, right, is I want something that'll be good for me that doesn't cost me a zillion freaking dollars to grab.
Right.
So you can use coffee as a base. Like I say, you use coffee, peppermint, and sometimes I'll do that when I work the night shift, is a coffee, peppermint. I'll drink it so I'm just awake, wide awake, where I'm breathing good, nothing cleans out my system. It's quite potent and powerful. Then again, I could take, or with what I'm doing now, since I'm not working tonight, like I'm talking to you and I'm writing stuff tonight, so I'm just like, I don't really need to go kill myself. So what I'm just do is like, I'll feel pretty good, have a wonderful time, and yeah, years of experience and experimentation. Everybody else did drugs. I put it with coffee. I mean,
caffeine, the drug of choice.
It's a simpler drug of choice, right? It's a simpler drug of choice. Yeah. So that is my thing. So whereabouts are you? If you don't mind, like, what part of the country you're in?
I am north of Pittsburgh, south of Erie.
Okay.
So I'm like, if you want to like pinpoint me on a map, if you look at Cleveland, Erie, and Pittsburgh, I'm right in the middle on the border of Ohio and Pittsburgh, or Pennsylvania.
Okay, cool. No, because so I give you an idea, we're not that far apart. I'm in Windsor, Ontario, literally by Detroit. So it's
so you're like basically north of me.
just basically about minus a certain lake, probably about 2 hours north of you. Yeah. Literally about 2 hours north of you is about where I'm at. So,
it doesn't take me long to get to Detroit. I've been to a couple cons up there. So
it probably takes about an hour and a half. I imagine about an hour and a half, give or take.
Yeah. Because I got to go up and around.
Like, you got to go that way, and then you got to get back to 75 somewhere, and you take 75 all the way freaking up. That's probably how you do it. So, that's right. We can navigate together, ladies and gentlemen, or something like that. Yeah, so.
We know maps.
We know maps. We are special. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 596 of Just Joshing, and I have a little group of off here. I am your host, Joshua Pintoresco. My guest is comic book writer, actually crowdfunder extraordinaire, Rob Multari. He's definitely one of the more successful crowdfunders on there. I only had so many Kickstarter privileges left, and so I decided that my last two projects, one was with you, and the other one was with a gentleman by the name of Russell Nolte, right? So you guys so it was just like, this is my Kickstarter privileges for this thing, because Kickstarter's like a candy store.
I know, right? I mean, I have stacks of like other like creators that I've like backed, and I'm like, I want to try and get to them and read them as much as I can, but I have so many.
Well, no, it's just such a. No, I'm genuinely, I like, the comics boom is literally on Kickstarter. It is incredible. Happy Monday, Doris. Right? No, it's incredible to me that it's just so incredible. I mean, don't get me wrong, the big two still are putting out some really fun books, but it just seems to me like a lot of the more innovative stuff right now is really on the Kickstarter level. It's like it's almost like there's like it's like the comic industry has, instead of having that booming the bestsellers that's drawing people in,
Right.
you have like this Kickstarter wide niche birth, or there's something literally for everyone.
Yeah. And I think too, like it's given creators a chance to explore their own stories. Whereas like the big two have always been like, this is our stuff. This is how we do it. Sometimes we reboot it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, no, that's right.
Yeah, so then like this kind of gives like Kickstarter's given people like that independence, thus indie creators able to tell their stories without somebody corporate wise telling them what to do or how to do it, and it makes it more interesting because then it's not just like the same old like cookie cutter stuff that they've got going on. It's free thought.
Well, no, actually, so it's more the fact that it's more the fact of, too, that I think one of the biggest boons for you guys, let's say you do decide to go work like corporately somewhere down the road, you guys have proven more than anything else that you can finish a project. So whether you work in the movie industry, whether you work in like another comic industry somewhere down the road, because that is definitely a real possibility. I've been noticing more and more there are people becoming more and more entrenched and established and into like getting movie deals, television deals.
Yeah, cross-platform media.
Yeah, and which is good business for everybody involved anyway, right? So, but one of the reasons why is Kickstarter gives you that is a heck of a proving ground. It's like, Rob, you have like, I got 5 issues of your book. You've done 5 comics. That's an impressive accomplishment on its own, regardless of how many people buy or not buy your book. You have 5 finished stories. So if you were to go to, say, a company like Boom or Dark Horse or DC for comics, I can finish a story arc. And they're like, holy crap, you can finish a story arc. So now, like I say, your werewolf stuff, I haven't read it yet, so I'm just throwing this as a shot in the dark. It's like, you want to do Swamp Thing? You want to do Swamp Thing? And you'd be like, I could do Swamp Thing. It's something up my alley.
I mean, I grew up with it, so I mean, I know.
I hit a bullseye, I think, right off the bat. It's not too bad. Not too bad. So which Swamp Thing incarnation was your favorite? Like, which creative team? Was it Alan Moore's or was it Grant Morrison's or like?
It was Grant, or it was Alan Moore's, and then it was actually, so I was more introduced to it in like the early '90s when the movies came out, or was late. Okay. And then they had like the action figures and the cartoons. Mm-hmm. And then that's kind of like when I was like starting to get into comics, was around that time. Because I was like, oh, well, these cartoons all have comics. And now I'm gonna, like I recognize that, and now, like learning to read, picking up comics, and doing that. So that's kind of like where that's around that time is when I started picking them up, way before the Grant Morrison runs.
Yeah. Okay. No. Like there's some good like Alan Moore's like. Swamp Thing has had the benefit of like some great creative runs. I enjoyed Snyder's run with it not too long ago, but Morrison's a classic. Moore's a classic. Like it's a character people really, really seem to dig doing.
Oh yeah.
It's such a fun ride. But no, that's traditional stuff. So was that the book that said I want to do comics, or what was the match? Like everybody's got that book where it's like I want to do comics. Which was yours? There had to.
Yeah, I really got heavy into Wolverine and the X-Men in the early '90s, late '80s, with the Jim Lee, Chris Claremont run. So when I was getting to the idea of wanting to write my own stuff, it started out being X-Men fan fiction. So like for me, it was like I had that moment of like, all right, I'm tired of Wolverine not having his adamantium after Magneto ripped it out. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to put it back in there myself. So I had like a whole script laid out. I had a giant crossover because like, that early 90s when crossovers were starting to be a bigger thing. And they had the great ones like the Extinction Agenda and Executioner Song. And, so I did a lot of, I made my own X-Men team and trying to introduce them into that. And, it just was like, for me, that was kind of like where I was, and then I sent them into Marvel, writing to Stan Lee like, hey, your biggest fan, this and that, and I got a very kind rejection letter back, saying that, hey, you know, Stan appreciates hearing from his fans. You know, we think your writing's great. We'd like you to keep it up, but we can't use your stuff because we have storylines so far in advance. You know, that kind of.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yes, but the fact that like I was 13, you know what I mean? I was 13, and they were like, keep it up. It was like fire, you know what I mean? So I like, you know, so that's from then on is when I started doing all my own stuff, and it kind of like revamped a lot of the own characters that I came up with, kind of like, you know, in the different stories and titles that I had put in, and you know, that's kind of where Nightwolf actually had its start, was from X-Men fanfic.
Well, no, you know what? I think we all like again, same thing. Like when I started writing books, for me it was looking at what we always look at to what the masters are people that are really good at this did, because our taste as readers and our abilities as writers, they're not necessarily the same thing when we start, but that's what we always aspire to those. We always aspire to those like moments and feelings and times.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a point when you have to like as an artist, no matter whether you're writing, drawing, whatever, you have to realize, okay, how can I grow as a creative? And that eventually comes into your own voice, your own caring. And there are exceptions, like Jim Shooter for comics and Gordon Corman for novels. But by and large, we usually have to develop that for a few years before it's like, okay, I have a voice, I know what the hell I'm saying, right? Because that is a very rare thing, to be able to write a cohesive story with something that really, really matters to you.
Yeah.
So until you're like an adult and you have some life experiences and get your ass kicked a little bit and you know the sense of knowing who you are. So you kept working at this probably for a few years.
Oh yeah. I mean, I took that, you know, that 13-year-old ambition, and I kept going with it. It kept changing, evolving as I got older. So did the story evolved, the characters evolved. It wasn't until like college, I think, where I actually had like more of a mature enough story that it wasn't a juvenile writing style. You know, it was more cohesive, put together, interesting. And then also kind of learning, like, you know, from other things and picking up things along the way, you know, and then taking a couple courses here and there while I was in college, like for creative writing and just to kind of get my, you know, feet dirty and just to kind of, you know, hands dirty and, you know, try and get in there, you know.
So I had the awesome honor about 6-7 years ago. I had a chance to actually do a Scott McCloud workshop in Lethbridge, Alberta. He was teaching a course, and understanding comics is a huge. I cannot stress enough how important that book is. If you want to get into comics, I don't care if you're writing, drawing. That's the book to read. Like, that is literally the book to read. So I had a chance to actually go. I was like the only writer in that group. Man, I couldn't draw back then. But they understood. Like, everybody understood. Like, you're here just to learn. It's like, yeah, because one of the things about
the mechanics.
Well, not only the mechanics, but just because also, like, I figured I've been drawing more lately. I don't know if you've ever seen anything on my board or not, but if you haven't, that's cool. I mean, I've gotten to the point where I can draw Legend of Zelda with incredibly obnoxious boots and a few other things now. I've actually, right? But the idea, but the idea is, at the time, it was more like, okay, what's an artist going to see when I do a script? Because that's important. I mean, comics literally more often than not is a collaboratory process between 2 or 3 very creative people. Depending on how if the illustrator is also the colorist, because usually right now, especially how comics are done today, writer, penciler, illustrator, and colorist are the 3. Colorists has become a much more important part of the process, you know, as it has evolved. So now you got 3 different minds working on a story, and so it's like, well, if I'm the writer / director, how the heck am I going to be able to write and direct and not be a dick? And also just I have friends in the industry. I have heard some horror stories about some of the script stuff I've heard in the past from some professionals, but it's like, no, I don't want to be that guy. I want to be that guy. It's like, that's open. I want to collaborate. I want to be like open, because I don't know about you, but this thing, when I have worked with illustrators with some of my other stuff, they're smarter than me. At least when it comes to some things. I'm not going to get in the way of them being smarter than me. I'm going to let them do what they do well, and get out of their way. It's like, I need this. Then they show you like, but you can do this. I'm like looking. Yeah, I can do that. That's actually. You're laughing because it's happened to you. I know it.
Well, to an extent, yeah. So for me, like I have an artist background, so I have the artist eye, if you will. I'm a graphic and web designer, and I used to do a lot of illustration in college and in high school. I have not so much since I got out, just because I know that wasn't like what I was great at. Mm-hmm. So like I decided to focus on what I was good at rather than what I wasn't. I mean, my character designs are probably more like almost like generic animation looking character designs, not comic, because like there's like a level of detail, you know what I mean? Like when you take like a screen, like a frame from like an animation, it's usually very flat and not like textured or whatever or detailed. Whereas like a comic has like muscles and this and that and all these different shades, But for me, like I have, like, if I could literally put what was in my brain into my hand, I would, it was just a matter of time then if I could focus on it. But so, yeah, for me, like whenever I'm writing my scripts, I visualize it, I put it into the script and I give it to the illustrator. And probably about like, I'd say maybe like 20% of the time, they'll come back with a suggestion that I'll be like, yes, that's better, do that. So yes, I have experienced that. Whereas often, like I will have like a vision, and a lot of like the horror elements of the books kind of have a particular pacing that I'm like, and that like sometimes have been suggested to make a change, but I'm like, no, I don't want to combine something because that takes away from the pacing of that let's say a scare jump, something or whatever. So there's very little bit of back and forth, but I will typically, if they do come back with something that I think works better, that they're suggesting, then I'm very happy to take their suggestions and
it's just smart because again, they have their own career process too.
Exactly. And I want it to be theirs too. Like it's not just when it comes to our scripting, it's when they're working on it, I want their flavor, I want their style, I want their when they're doing it, I don't want it just to be like, oh, it's another job. You know what I mean? I want them to enjoy it and like what's coming out of their themselves as well.
Well, yeah, and also the more involved they are, the more it's their, and it becomes more their book too. It's like, hey, I like this.
Well, that's kind of like how like Nightwolf developed over time. At first, like with Carlos, my current, he was my first and current, but there was a period where he got a job that was better paying than what
Yeah.
And it was, the hours were like grueling for him. It was like, it wasn't like Magic the Gathering, but it was like a card game like that he was getting paid to pump out like some serious illustrations.
Oh yeah.
And that's in itself is a lot of time involved, and so he had no time for me after halfway through issue 1. So I kind of had to do a sidestep and find somebody similar. So I found Document Studio, which is Oscar Chococotaele's kind of like illustration company. He did the rest of the book for issue 1, and then he did issue 2 and 3. But then Carlos had changed jobs. So I invited him back. Long story short. So now he's back in. But like when he first left, he was getting into it, was really enjoying it. But then this job came. So when I asked him years later, I'm like, hey, do you want to come back? He jumped on it. I was like, yes, because he loved the project. And he felt like because he did all the character designs that like from what I did, I gave to him, and then he made them his own. So I mean, he put time and investment into it as well. So like when he started doing issue 4 and 5, like he really was like into it. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't just me; it was us as a team.
No, he left for the best of all reasons. He goes, Rob, I love this, but they're paying me stupid money.
Exactly. They're paying me stupid money to work stupid hours.
Yeah. So I can't say no. I'm sorry. And you're like, tears.
Yeah, right. Literally, I'm pretty sure there was a month like afterwards. I was like,
you're like, yeah, but you can't be mad at a guy for that,
right? Yeah,
you're like, I can't be mad.
Exactly.
But I'm sad.
I mean, and at the time, like I didn't have anything published. I was a nobody. I mean, I still consider I don't consider myself a somebody now, but even back then, like, I didn't have a Kickstarter. I didn't have a published book. I didn't have anything, I just had scripts and like my own drawings.
I cannot stress how hard it is to find people and some of that's budget, some of that's everything like that. But the process of finding a collaborator that's serious about getting a book done, that's so hard.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's so hard because so as you have probably experienced this many a time, and probably we're never gonna name names because you never know. Sometimes people do get their shit together over time, but it's like I'll be there for you. Excellent. And then the day comes and they're like, well, where are you? And they're like,
crickets.
Yeah, you're like, I have like 8 rules of success in life, and the first rule is show up. It is amazing how many people break that rule, and
it's crazy.
Yeah, and everybody's like, that's a low expectation. You think that? You would think showing up is a low expectation,
right? Yeah.
Yeah, you think that? Yeah, no, it's no. I'm not kidding. Like Doris, but like, I will tell you this. Like, any artist will tell you this. That's relatively gotten paid to do their art. One of the biggest reasons they get paid is they show up and they're there. Because
you do the work, you get paid.
Exactly.
It's amazing how that works.
It is. It totally is. But I bring this up because for some reason, I never understood in college because I was one of those flakes in college. It's like, why the hell do I got to show up to do the fucking work? I got the knowledge down right here. And while there is some truth to that, there's this thing called discipline I did not have back then. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's that grooming you for like that job. You know what I mean? Like, because you're expected to be at that job.
Yeah, but I will say this. That whole showing up thing, that's emphasized greatly there too, right? And it is for that reason. It's not. There's no magic to. There's no magic. This is one of the least magical parts of the job. But what Rob cares about when he's hiring you is, can you finish a project?
Mm-hmm.
That's why he's willing to pay what he pays, because like there's an expectation that you'll finish the project. Otherwise, what in the hell are you doing? Right? And because that's it. Like it's amazing. Like showing up is an expectation, and even again, as you get older, you're like, this seems so simple, yet no one does it. And I don't understand.
Why is this so hard?
Yeah, exactly. Why is this so hard? And it's like, it's not. I think the biggest surprises as I've gotten older is the simple fact that the things that seem incredibly really simple and I appreciated way back, I did not appreciate when I was younger. As you get older, like, you know what? This is like the only shit that matters. Like literally, oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, all the things that we thought mattered back then really are like, wow. I wish I could put this brain like in me 18 years ago.
Yeah, but you need to go through that to understand it. I never thought that like life would boil down to, for me, showing up and doing my stuff, right? Do I have hot water? Yes. I sound so terrible, but it's so freaking true. Like literally, civilization as we know it can literally be defined by 2 things: hot water and toilet paper. And I am not kidding. That's when you know you got civilization.
Right?
And you break and the fact. Yes. Hey, Jagtress, come on in. Right? But that's my thing, right? It's like I never thought, like when I was younger, that civilization could be broken down so simply. But it's true.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, it's funny because you say that, like, and I feel the exact same way because, like, those fantasies where like people are like, oh, I wish I was back in the medieval times and this and that, and you know what I mean. I'm like, don't get me wrong, I love going to like the medieval fair just like any other nerd, you know what I mean. But like, I think about it and I'm like, I don't want to go back there.
No,
I love dressing up the part and having fun, but like, I don't want to live back then because like really. Like, if I didn't have toilet paper and hot water for showers, man, like I'd be around all these stinky people.
no. Well, no. You'd be like doing it the old-fashioned way. So I gotta get a tub.
Yeah,
I gotta like light it on fire.
Grab a leaf and hope that I don't get poison ivy.
Yeah, I mean that's awkward. So what happened? I went to that tree again. God, how many times do I gotta tell you? It feels so nice.
That's poison sumac.
It feels so nice. Wow. I think I did this podcast to a new low. But anyway, that's so good. But I mean, it sounds so dumb, but I recognize, like, I've just recognized that, like, that little truth about life is, it's not the big things, it's the little things that really matter. And even with like business or art and stuff like that, it's just like, it's literally the business of, can you show up? Can you do the job? Do you pursue it with some kind of love and joy? And if you got that, you're professionally set. And if you're and when it comes to like relationships, are you with people that give a shit about you and you give a shit about them?
Yeah.
It sounds stupid simple, but that's literally it. Not much else in this life really matters, right?
Yeah, and it takes too like time to develop those relationships too. Like, I mean, really, like for me, like, with Carlos, like I said, it took years to like get to the point where we are now, where we're like a more cohesive team. And then like now, and with Mog, like now working with Mog, like it was actually amazing how quickly she became like partnered into this. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, it was like, so I approached her with the project. It kind of took a couple months to kind of get the ball moving because she's so busy. Yeah. But like, once we sat down and came to like some sort of agreement, I mean, it was like, we just finished page 17 and handing that off to the colorist. And, and like her and I are like going back and forth about what we could do for the cover or what we could do for the Kickstarter or what, this and that and different things. And, even like when I was doing the Nightwolf Kickstarter, she was like, hey, I'm going to do this painting for you. And then we're gonna do this crazy like one person tier and see how well that goes. Like that was her idea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was like, okay, cool. We'll see what happens.
So I'm kind of Mog as an artist, right? Because she's just so good at what she does. But I think what amazes me about her is the level of detail. Like she approaches it like a problem solver. Like, I ain't there yet. I might get like literally. I have Link with obnoxious boots. I just did Chrono Trigger for the first time ever, and it's just like I'm there. I watch what she does, and it's like, right? Because she's so good. I don't. But again, her attention to detail, her meticulousness, her approach to problem solving is so interesting. I think for her, I think doing a comic with you will be a lot of fun because if anything, it might just become a fun thing for her, right? Because I almost get the feeling with her, it's like she approaches an assignment like a job, like a professional job, but like sometimes I look at how she does. It's like do you have fun with all those she did like a slideshow like about a week or so ago of all the stuff she did to prep for like this commission she did, and I was like, I is the painting what you love, or is it the process of coming up with the painting? Because it's almost like that's her.
Oh yeah. She loves to do her research, and it's crazy like how detailed they. Sometimes it's funny too because like she'll focus so much detail on one of the most minute parts of it. And I'm like, you kind of forgot the detail over here with the main focus.
Well, that's it's like, Mom, it's like this is cool, but I needed this.
Yeah, I was like, I need this attention, meow.
It's cool. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if you want it, I'll give it to you. I'm not gonna fight you. God knows. I'd be afraid to fight Moxie. Like she's just.
But you know that she's such a sweetheart.
No, she's like her and Mel both are incredibly sweet.
Oh yeah, they're great. Like I can't. Like I've had a couple conversations, like video chats with them. Just super cool, super nice, super chill. Like it's so great to have them like as part of this, this project.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's also now a different book, and I think for you too, like just as from a creator / collaboration, Carlos is great, but you write. But again, when you get together with a collaborator long enough, you work on a book. You tailor it to each other, right? A little bit,
right? Yeah.
Right. Now with Mog, it's a different dynamic.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and now it's going to be cool because now when you go back to work with Carlos, you'll have some different ideas, like, hey, Carlos, have you thought about this? And Carlos is like, no, I didn't think of this. It sounds really cool.
Well, it's funny because like I've shared with Carlos some of the stuff that Mog has done because with Snowpaw, like it being from Nightwolf and him and I coming out together with the character design and everything. Like so, it's like seeing his baby grow into something else entirely, as well. You know what I mean? So I'm sharing with him, all the stuff, and he's like. Oh wow! He's like, I love this style that she's doing, So he's complimenting her on how, like taking, also his. So it's like we handed our baby to somebody else to take care of for a while. You know what I mean? And she's doing a phenomenal job in bringing it into her own, and just the completely different stylization. And so it's like, I love how it's like night and day. Like literally, Nightwolf is the night side of things, and Snowpaw being a day version. Like so different, and they complement each other in that manner.
So we'll talk about Snowpaw a little bit more. I actually had a really interesting thought. Actually, I wanted to bring to is this. So you're big in like you got kind of like an urban fantasy / horror feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, like from a reading habit perspective, in terms like I don't know if you read much in terms of novels and stuff like that, but do you like, was that like, why did you choose the werewolf? Was it just like right place, right time genre, or was it just like I have this great werewolf story and like there's all these cool ones out there now? Like when I look at the novel world, or is it more like I just like a really cool horror story and let's fucking do a really cool old-fashioned horror story?
So for me, I've always been a fan of werewolves. From way back I can remember. Like the movies, even like the random like cartoons as a kid, like Scooby Doo and the Rockland Werewolf, or Scooby Doo and there was like the werewolf that was green. I thought it was a little weird, but anyway, Like I still was like it was like funny because like there was all these different like werewolves coming in and out of like different things that I was watching as a kid, and then like the movies, getting into horror movies, and as a teenager, so. A lot of that carried into my like when I was in college. Like all I did was watch. Like I was listening to like heavy metal and I was watching horror movies. Matter of fact, when I was in art school, I'm doing like I had a screen printing class where I actually had to carve like cork boards, like and then make those into screen prints. Yeah. So like I legit like as I was doing some of this art where I did a series of Fear. And I was watching Nightmare on Elm Street, like I had it like on my TV in the corner while I'm like in the dark, like, at night drawing, so like I had like, just all those different things, influences. And when I started working on Nightwolf, it was very, to me, like it was how I wanted werewolves to be. Whereas like, there's always been like that thing where like they're always monsters, they lose themselves, or like sometimes the look and feel, like a lot of them look like men with a lot of hair and like a painted nose, or like the really good ones where they're actually you're seeing like the Howling, and you're actually seeing or where Werewolf in Paris and Werewolf in London, you're actually seeing the transformations happen, where I was like, why is the werewolf always the bad guy? Why can't there ever be the werewolf is actually a good guy, or at least an anti-hero, So I kind of started developing that. And then in high school, I got introduced to Werewolf the Apocalypse, which is a gaming series. And I was like, it's much like Dungeons and Dragons. and it blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what like how I imagined like what it should be like, right? And a lot of the drawings and stuff in these books were very inspirational for me. And so it was kind of like, it wasn't exactly how it was kind of like, it was closer than what I ever had seen out there. And enough that I was like, okay, this is, I want somebody to put out a comic book like this. And since nobody did, I was like, screw it, I'm doing it.
I'm doing it. Oh, wow. A couple fun things to unpack. So you said metal, so I have to ask. So are we talking like Slayer? Are we talking Metallica, like classic Metallica? Are we talking like crazy hair bands like Man of War? Are we talking like modern stuff like Nightwish?
The entire gambit. I can go anywhere from like just regular rock all the way to like like the Slayer or.
So I generally don't write to metal, right? I generally don't write to metal. I'll go like I admit this. I'm soft rock to like rock because I find it is like I write to a musician called, her name's Lights, is Canadian, like ambient music, really fun. It doesn't hit the brain. But the heaviest I go generally when I write is like Taria or Nightwish, just nice power ballads, but nothing like where I'm screaming my head off because I'm like that takes me right out.
I think one of the best albums for me, like while I'm like working in general, because one, it's kind of like the longer streams, kind of like how Metallica used to have the very long songs and great guitar riffs. Dragon Force.
Dragon Force is pretty cool.
That the one album that they I think that was like their more popular one. That's the one that I will listen to that like over and over and over again. And and as I'm working, like sometimes I'll be like,
no, they're great. I'm not as crazy about their again. It's metal. It's not lyrics aren't necessarily like the end all be all, but they know who they are. Yeah, Joan Jett. That's cool. Like for me, these like I have like a playlist right now because I'm working on an epic poem like Alice's Greek mythology, Alice's Pandora. It works incredibly well. So I got like a playlist of like stuff that's like I think the heaviest thing I got on there. I do have two Amon Amarth songs on there. One of them is like The Wanderer, and the other one is like Thor Thunder, the Thunder God song because it's such a cool. It's a good way to wrap it up, like really right. But the rest of it, like it's everything from like The Greatest Showman, like soundtrack to like. So I listen to it like a mix when I'm working on that.
Yeah.
But it's just like it's cool. So do you still do mosh pits, or are you at that point when you go to a metal show where you're like, I'm in the back having a beer? I'm not getting into that anymore.
The last time I did a mosh pit was when I was 18.
Oh wow.
And, yeah, well, and the reason that was the last time was because I used to be in a band. It was very like Godsmack, System of a Down-esque, because that was like the early 2000s. Like I graduated in 2001 from high school, so like I played like from like 1999 to 2007. I think is how long we were together. And so I was 18 in the last mosh pit that I ever was in because I was playing a show that night, but like with a bunch of other bands. So I was in the crowd mosh pitting before my set. And some kid had his arms sprawled out and it just started spinning and clocked me right in my nose and broke my nose. So I literally I had a concussion and I had a broken nose on stage when I was trying to sing.
Oh.
So that was the last time that I ever was in a mosh pit.
No, I still do them, but so I mean I'm just like that crazy that inner Viking crazy guy inside because like last time I was in a mosh pit I got banged in the head with a wheelchair or someone was like crab surfing on a wheelchair. It didn't hurt as much as you think because you got your adrenaline's up, right?
Right.
But it's really hard to get mad at getting hit with a wheel.
Yeah.
Like literally, you're seeing a wheelchair going up, getting like a riding, like you never like things you never thought you'd see in a pit.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I've seen some. I mean, I remember at an Ozfest when Slipknot was playing. This is probably like 2000. Yeah, I think it was 2000. And they were on the main stage in Pittsburgh. And I mean, the sky turned black full of garbage. And they were just picking up the dirt from the ground and grass and just like, it was just like literally like ridiculous, like how crazy it got. I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. What would be great for Alice there, Doris? Just, yeah, she read my first book, so it's like, yeah, but it's one of those, like I said, it's just one of those things where I just like it's cool that you have like a music background. I've actually noticed something, and I have a theory because I've interviewed quite a few comic creators that actually have a background in a band. So I'm gonna bring this up. Like, did you like? Because honestly, I almost feel like because you are usually with a creative team, it's almost like you're jamming with a band.
Yeah, I mean, it is very similar.
Yeah.
So yeah, I relate a lot of the stuff that I did with my band because I was a lead singer. I wrote the lyrics. I did all of the marketing. I did all of our album covers, our T-shirt designs. I mean, I was doing basically all the stuff, that I'm doing now, but like in a different aspect. You know what I mean? Like, putting together the different parts of the song. Often, so like I would say my illustrator is like my guitarist, and that we lay the groundwork, the lyrics with the guitar, and then from there, once we kind of put that together, then we kind of go to the drummer and the bassist, which, you know what I mean? It's kind of like then it would be like the colorist and the lettering.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, actually, that's a heck of a training gate. Like actually, if you sit there and think about it, your band experience probably trained you very greatly for your comics experience. Right?
Oh, I imagine so, yeah.
Yeah, so like you've been preparing for this since your teenage days. Like you actually went through like the proper training. I'm going to train for this, right? I'm breaking a band. Although I do feel I should ask before we move on to something else, like the fact that you play werewolf, which means you're an RPG guy too, which I think is awesome. But the thing is, yeah. Oh, cool, yeah, totally. But my favorite, just a little thing, Doris, real quick before I go on. My favorite song when I listen to is from Egypt Central. It's called White Rabbit. It's a perfect Alice song. It's a perfect Alice song.
I'm a fan of Egypt Central.
Yeah. So that song you're aware of, and that's like it's perfect for that track list. It's kind of is.
Right on.
But no, it just seems to me like for you your comic aspirations. Did you like have like big? I want to bring this up before we move on. So you were in a band for a long time. Mm-hmm. So I imagine like you also had music aspirations too. So like how did that go? Like what did that beyond like all the practical like writing, like marketing, building a brand, stuff like that. I like how was that experience? Was it everything you imagined it would be?
It was. So it was one of those things where I mean, I put when I'm really focused on something, I put all of my effort, all of my passion into it. So like for me, like the band was like a big part of my life, and it was kind of like I still had comics, like I was still doing stuff on the side. Matter of fact, the band's name came from one of my comic book characters, and so I mean that just shows you like what while I'm doing, like I was in the middle of making the logo for the comic when like we were coming up with band names, and I was like, hey, what about this? And everybody was like, yeah. So it was like, so the band became Crimson Dawn, which is one of my titles that I have floating around out there that I'm going to be releasing. It's on my website, but not like in publication yet. Matter of fact, he makes a quick appearance in issue 2 of Nightwolf. Mm-hmm. Just kind of establish that my characters all live in a shared world. But like, so with the band, like it was one of those things where it's like, I'm in college at this point, high school, then college. I still did the comics whenever I had my own spare time, which then seemed I had way more for whatever reason or not. But the band was my main focus. Like for me, it was kind of like almost it was a job and a relationship all in one. You know what I mean? So like when the band broke up, it was one of those like emotional things for me because like it was like that was my outlet. So like if I was angry about something, I put it into lyrics, I put it into my vocals. You know what I mean? if I was sad about something, same difference. You know what I mean? Like it was my emotional outlet on stage. And so when I didn't have that, I like immediately went like, okay, now I'm putting my full focus back into comics. So, but like for me, it was like, all right, since I am doing this, I'm putting all my into it. You know, like I actually had the aspirations of being like the next hit band. You know what I mean? Like that was like my goal for that. And we, you know, we toured a lot. I mean, we pretty much toured like a lot of like all across Pennsylvania, all the way on the other, like through Ohio to the other side, like through Sandusky. And then kind of like, so we were like, you know, up and down, like we almost like made a cross with all the different like tours we did, you know? But yeah, to get to the point where like we were approached by record guys, a lot of them basically tried to screw us. And they got to the point too where like everybody was disenchanted by it. And, you know, then our drummer, he, you know, was like, you know what, he started driving truck and, you know, got his girlfriend pregnant. And it was like, that was basically, you know, the end from there, you know?
Well, the thing about a band is you all have to, it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
Everybody has to be in, or it just doesn't work. No matter what, one person can only drag everybody else for so long.
Oh yeah.
And it sounds like what happened to you was it's just like you guys you did the course, you got so far. You're probably proud of everything you've done. I'm actually very curious now because here's the thing. Now I'm like, and I asked this off the air a little bit. I'm kind of curious about your album history a little bit because I'm sure you guys you're quite like in that time. That's a lot of time to make records and albums and songs. And I mean, but there comes a point too where you gotta make a decision. Like, is this really what you want to do?
Right.
And it sounds to me like for the band, like you guys, you sound proud of what you accomplished, and I think you should be.
Okay.
But it's just like, but it was also like, it had its time. It came. And it went. And I think honestly that like I said earlier, it was just like it sounds like it trained you for what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Right. Also, the other thing about doing comics versus say going on in a band, especially, I'm assuming your stuff was in the like hard rock metal. I have this theory like you're probably in that category.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. A little less energy making a comic. It's still energy, but it's a little less energy making a comic when you go meet people. It's like, hey, how you doing? You're not screaming your head off. You're not going out
I'm
there
not on stage sweating my butt off.
Yeah, you're like, at the end of that, you're like, I'm done. It was great, but it's all done. Now you're like, I met a lot of people. That's cool. That's really, really cool. And I still have energy, and I'm not sweating, at least not as much. So, I mean,
you would think that, but when you go to a Comic-Con and you're like, so you put all 3 days of a Comic-Con in, so that's kind of like, it's almost like doing a full, like just one night or 2 nights of playing out, you know, loading up the equipment, doing it, going ahead, packing up the equipment. You know, like, that's kind of like what the Comic-Cons are like.
Oh yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? So like, it's kind of like that same situation there too.
Well, so what I find with a con, right, is the first night, everybody's like excited, so no one notices anything. And then the energy of a con, the way it works is the energy of the con feeds you until the last day, about halfway through the day, because there's that quiet knowledge that you know it's over. Like everybody just there's subconscious like we know it's over, and because we know it's over, it's like. And then you just slowly deflate. And when you leave the con, you're like, I'm done. Like, I'm just done. And what happens is like the next day, it's like, I'm going to go sleep till like, so Monday's the day after. I'm going to sleep till Tuesday. And I'll, on Tuesday, I will remember, I think, important stuff like coffee. And I'm a person and just yeah, I'm done. I'm just done.
There's still stuff in the truck. I got to get it out.
Yeah, crap. I'll take something. You'll take like something. Yeah. Well, no, it's true. It's true, Doris. Like that's what you feel like. Like I feel the same way when I do like writing conferences too. It's just like first 2 days or 3 days, great. That last day, you get to that certain point in the afternoon. You're like, what do you want to do? I either want a beer or I want to sleep. I'm not sure which one I want more of right now. I won't fight the beer, but if the sleep option presents itself first, I might just pass out.
And it's like, because I don't like, typically whenever I'm at a con too, like I don't sit down very often. Like I'm standing probably 90% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's that period, like there are like maybe like moments of like just pure exhaustion. I have to sit for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend April, who comes and helps me run my tables, she can tell, because usually I'm like, bubbly talking to everybody saying, hey, how you doing? She can tell like when my like gas tank is almost on E, and she hands me a monster Java and she's like, here, you need this.
So you get to the point, it's like, hi.
Yeah.
It's like, hi, what's up? I can't speak. I'm sorry.
Do you like werewolves?
What? The bear. Where are they called again?
Yeah,
holy crap! I'm back.
Yeah, it's like Popeye.
So as long as I don't see your arms, like arms go like Popeyes, we'll be good. Because then I'll be like, okay, he's got to clock somebody. I'm alive. Boom! It's like, I don't think you can do that.
I mean, if it was a guy who broke my nose, I wouldn't mind. No.
Yeah.
But I'm bumped.
Yeah, no. I've said this in other conversations. The worst thing that ever happened to me in a pit is a guy, like the unspoken rules of the mosh pit. It was like one guy actually hit me in the kidney. I turned around and was like, "When you do that again, I drop you." He was very, very, very. I like that. Apparently, I can be scary sometimes, and then he just looked at me like, "I don't think I want to hit you again." It's like, no, you really don't.
Yeah. Somebody falls, pick them up.
Yeah. No. Yeah, absolutely no. Someone falls, pick them up. Somebody like. Everybody's just there to have a good time and vent some energy. And even at cons, like it's very similar in that sense. Mostly everybody's just trying to have a good time, vent some energy, right? And usually show off. Like my favorite part of the con, not including like the cool comics and other toys that sometimes I have to go. Is like, I'm an adult. I need to eat at some point. and of course, the only thing I hate about cons is obviously the obnoxious cost of a pretzel in the lineup. It's like, I got a pretzel and it was $10, and I feel really terrible.
Yeah, I try to avoid the event or the concessions. Like
it's hard though sometimes depending on what con you're at.
Yeah,
like sometimes like the food so when I was in Phoenix, when I was doing Phoenix Con, they have a good food court section like a couple blocks away. Right, but you gotta go a couple blocks. Well, it's not too bad, but it's just like you gotta go a couple blocks. So it's like, well, if I gotta do a panel, I gotta go get the food.
Right.
How do you feel? Very dirty right now. Dirty. Right. That's the downside. But the plus side is you get to see people in these like really cool costumes. Yeah. Although my all-time favorite, I have to say, I still say this, the dad was a kiss demon. The little girl was Baby Yoshi. I was like, that's cute. Like that is really, really, really cute.
Nice.
How about so? What's your favorite? Like honestly, since you are there, like you're there to have a good time as much as anything else. Is it other creators? Do you like meeting the fans? Like what's your favorite part of the con?
I think talking to the fans. Just even if they don't, buy. I love like just meeting new people and talking. And sometimes like just hearing their story. Or even seeing like the designs of the costumes that they come up with. I mean, especially if they're not professional cosplayers, if they're just there to have a good time, And I've actually, I've talked to several, families who come dressed together. Or like, as a matter of fact, I think my most memorable was there was a family with a mother, father, and a young son who I think was like 10, maybe a little younger, around that, and they got like my comic was his first comic ever.
Cool.
Like it was like that was his introduction to this world, and I'm like, you know what I mean? And I was like, that's amazing, to have that like, because I remember that feeling myself, and for that, so I talked to his parents, and we took pictures, and it just was a cool, like just being able to talk to people and hearing their stuff,
Oh yeah, no, it's. The cool thing about convention is you realize how big the world is, and you're not alone in it. You're doing your own thing, and you get to meet some cool people that you don't get the chance to meet any other.
Yeah, because I come from a small town, so like there's not a lot of people who are very like-minded like myself, and So like to be able to go to places like that and see people who enjoy the same things that I do is amazing. You know, it's like just so refreshing to feel like that I'm not alone. I'm like, you are my people.
Well, it's cool, right? That's what you hope for when you do these conventions and you do these shows, is that you find people that are like minded. And the cool thing, the one good thing about last year, there isn't a lot, but the one good thing about last year, right, was, you did get a good chance to kind of see like how it's not everybody's kind of in a similar boat. And like I said, I don't know what the convent, like I'm in Canada, and I wonder how long it'll be before we come out into the light again. But you guys seem to be just about, like, if you're not there, you guys aren't knocking down again.
I've seen some, like, especially the last like month, I've seen weekends where people are like posting stuff. So it's like I've seen like cons starting to make a comeback.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like that to me is like that's awesome. Knowing that's happening. My next one's in August, so I'm super stoked about it.
Yeah, like you guys aren't going to shut down again. Like I already know this. Like it doesn't matter at this point what goes on. It's like you guys are like, you know what? We're done. We're going to go out. We're going to live into the world. Here, I'm going to be like, this is kind of thing. I got a U.S. passport. I have to do it. I might be like this. If we're still in the slow phase of going in and out again, I'm gonna be like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna join you guys down there because I get there. Because I'm like at this point I'm just ready to go out and explore and travel and do things again. And I think honestly at this point, I think it's the healthier. I think overall it's the healthier course of action. I think people do need to interact and get out.
Mental health is a big thing too. Like
yeah.
You know, and feeling like isolated is, that's like, you know, and my wife's a mental health therapist. So like she has told people, hey, you got to keep your head, like up and keep, because otherwise, because being stuck in and not being communicative with people, like call people, video chat, try and be as like sociable as you can to get out of the funk. Because I mean, it's, that there's, and not to be a Debbie Downer, but like, suicides were up over the last year because of this.
Yeah.
And it's sad to say.
Well, no, but it's again, people aren't, we're built to connect.
Exactly.
We're built to connect. So, I mean, at some point we have to start connecting again, or just bad things happen. And that's just, and there comes a point where you have to kind of go, it's like, we have to go back out into the world. It's just the way it is. It's just right, good, bad, or indifferent. Just the way it is. No, like I said, for me, it's like I'm not gonna lie. Like I've been getting back into the drawing stuff because like at the end of this year, like I'm doing novels, like light novelish kind of stuff. I'm gonna be releasing my first book where I'm illustrating stuff. I'm kind of scared to death. I'm gonna be using like Twitch stream like as a base, like nothing super hard to draw, but I mean, just one of those things where it's just like, my God, I'm going down this path I never thought I did, and I kind of get the feeling, although you've always kind of want, like, it's surreal when you want something, and suddenly you're there doing it, and you're like, is this my life? Like, how did that happen? Right? I kind of feel like I don't know if you're at the point where you're doing comics just full time yet. No. But I do get the feeling you're a lot closer to that than when you started.
Oh yeah, so I'm still very much dependent on my full-time job to support my family. Probably if I was like a young single dude where I'm at right now, might be able to make that switch because I could probably live on a budget just myself. Whereas, like, I have 3 kids, and so I have.
You gotta sell a lot more comics and get that movie deal.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, and I do a lot of like, I try to make sure that family comes first, my full-time job, all that stuff, and then like, so I will do like, I'll stay up late, or I'll get up early, or or I'll fill it in if I have a break. I just would try, if I, And like Doris was saying, like I would quit my day job too if I could.
I'm in trying to do free. I'm in like borderline on the freelance end of things because for me, that's just how I'm wired. Like I've had that taste of freelancing now, so it's like you have that taste of it. You just can't be an employee. Like you're just a typical employee again.
Yeah.
You just can't. Like I'm literally just shooting for out every crazy job I can possibly imagine at this point because honestly, life's too short. Like life is way too short. Again, I'm in a different boat. I'm a single guy. You got kids, so you got to do it. But even so, I mean, you'd be amazed. Like with everything you've done, there are definitely things where it's just like you might be amazed where that all leads you. It might lead you to that really, really crazy, wonderful dream job. Who knows? You might be the guy who's like down the road. You'll be like a showrunner for one of these streaming channels now. You're like, I mean, it's a possibility because you've proven it time and time again. You've done music instead of Graham. Yes, totally. I got plans, but I say that honestly just because you never know where we're all like. I mean, you definitely know this more probably than I do. Just where you've gone, everything you do leads somewhere. Mm-hmm. Right. So, I mean, your music, your comic aspirations led you down to music, and your music led you back into comics, and comics may lead you, who knows, right? Where that will take you from here.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's an evolution, no matter what, like, how it changes, like everything changes. And, and for me, like I've seen like the amount of growth that I've seen from issue 1 to issue 5 has been like, it's been staggering because, it's amazing to finally to get to a point where like the snowball is building and getting bigger. You know what I mean? Like starting from this small thing to where I am now, it's and I still don't even think like I'm, obviously I wouldn't even say I'm probably in the middle rung on a ladder. You know what I mean? I'm still climbing, and I still play. I'm aiming, and I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep climbing until either I have to take a sidestep or something. But I'm, I still, it's, and that's, I think, go ahead.
You're coming to that wonderful spot. Like you just mentioned this. You are taking your properties and you're letting other artists start to play with them, which that's a huge step. Like I think people underestimate just how huge step that is because one of the things, the business of what you do is a big part of it is your backlist. That's one of the reasons why you're growing. You have 5 issues. When I did your Kickstarter pledge, it's like, whoa, he's got 5 issues to read. And he very politely told me, it's like, are you sure you went to the right pledge? And when I looked, like, no, I didn't go to the right pledge. I'm silly, right?
Well, and I wanted to make sure that, like, I wanted to make sure you got what you really wanted.
I got it. I know, and I'm glad you did that. I'm really glad you did that. I'm not saying that, but because it's like, I think he went, because deep down, it's like, I think he was going for that one. Yeah. Right, I think he was going for that one and he missed. It does happen. It does happen when you guys switch it on a mobile phone.
You were the first one that I noticed that, so I went back and checked other ones. I'm like, I don't recognize you. Hey, did you really want this one or did you want that?
Yeah, I know because it happened. Like, it happened. It's just like I went to hit for that one and it hit the other one for some reason. It was like, oh, no, I want that one.
I mean, they were so close together, too. And I think, like, the fact that it said get all issue 5, like, it kind of was like, it could have been a read, you know what I mean? Like, just.
Yeah, no, hey, listen, I totally acknowledge my own. I got no problem acknowledging my own confidence on here. I'm totally good with that. But all I'm just saying, though, like, the business of what you do is, and it's like the first issue did, meh. It's like me with my books. My first Alice book did okay. It was just a digital only, but again, it did okay, and it's led to some cool things. Mm-hmm. When I release Alice 1, people are going to go back to see the first Alice. When I release Alice 2, then we go back and see the other 2 Alices. Same with you. You release 5 books. You release 6, everybody's going to check out the first 5. Now you're at the point where you're getting other creators to play in your universe as well. So now what's going to happen is someone's going to take, because everybody's issues somebody's first. And the way we are as a culture, as people, we're obsessive about all the things that we really like. So that's just human nature. So what's going to happen with you is the more stuff you put out, because of what you've learned about marketing and being savvy about that, you're going to create that awareness. And then what's going to happen is people are just going to sample what they like. Some people will sample little. Some people will sample everything. Because it's somewhere in the middle. And what's going to end up happening is as you create more work, you're going to create a bigger backlist. And as your backlist gets bigger, so too will your returns. That is the nature. That's the business of a creative. It's not just one thing. It's everything.
Yeah, you want to make all the things.
Yeah, well, no, but you make all the things. But again, issue 1 is still selling for you.
Yeah,
right. Because what's happened is every issue new people have discovered you, so they go back to the beginning.
Oh right? yeah. I mean, even at con, like even before, like so at my last con, I had the first 3 issues. That was before issue 4 came out, like literally right before issue 4 came out. So like and issue 3 had just come out. So like I had wholeheartedly expected 3 to be the more majority sold, right? I still sold more issue 1s that year despite just releasing a new issue because there's still people to be able to pick it up and get into it. Like they want to check it out first, and then they come back and it's everybody wants to check out or get that first issue. Like they were like, hey, I got number 1.
well, yeah, but that's it, right? But that's your business. And then as you keep making more stuff, more new stuff, people are gonna look at the whole picture, and then suddenly, who knows? Maybe one day you'll be like, hey, I'm this video game company. Please not EA. I'm with this video game company, and I'm interested in taking something you have into a video game. You're like, that's cool. Hey, I'm this movie studio because you get all this material now. You got all this IP, and who knows, right? But that's how the business works. It's usually not the first thing you make,
right?
It's the 10th thing you make. It's the 13th, or sometimes it's the 7th thing you make, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, look at Robert Kirkman. I mean, Walking Dead wasn't his first thing, but it basically led him back to being able to produce a cartoon, based on Invincible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, cool. Thanks, guys. Welcome to the show. This is Rob. He does comics. He's awesome. We've been talking about band stuff too, and you missed our whole epic talk on toilet paper. It was a lot of fun. No, it's like one of those things. Like one of those things about it, that's just the business, right? Like a lot of us think the first book is gonna and this disappoints creators in general, not just comics. Is like that first book's gonna be a big hit. That very rarely happens.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But if you keep at it and you keep doing the thing, if you keep doing the thing, right, all that stuff you do adds up, right? It's one of those things where you just have to recognize that it's going to that's a good question. Well, we'll get to that. The answer for me is no. However, I have done random scrap paper in a setting. It's like, oh crap, I have this really good idea. And you get this you looking around and you go to the recycle bin. And you're like, oh god, that's all I got. Grab, just go. That's mine.
Yeah, I Book Nook. For toilet paper, writing, drawing, I've actually, when I didn't have anything, I've used my own arm. I would literally just I had literally an entire story on my arm one time.
See, that actually is my worst nightmare because it's my terrifying thing is I've done this a couple times. I've written an idea. It's what the fuck was I thinking at that moment in time, right? Sometimes I can imagine that with your hands. I got it. It's great. What the hell, man?
Yeah, oh crap, I smeared it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't remember what this was.
I sweated it off.
Yeah. Especially on a day like this, it's no.
gotta get imprinted on a newspaper real quick.
It's quick tattoo this. No, that's probably a little too far, but that's okay.
One of my first drawings of Nightwolf actually was a tattoo that I got when I was 18.
Oh wow! See, very cool. Very, very cool. You draw well. You draw very well.
But if I could still draw like that, it's been years since I actually sat down and.
It's like anything else, man. It's practice, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like muscle memory. You got to work it back in there.
Yeah, I mean, you're just playing with shapes and lines. This chemist. Oh, it's got a bit down my thigh leg and went, huh? That's cool. That's very cool, Book Nook. And she likes your cat too, which is actually really, really cool. So, yes. So the chat has come in. So, what we'll do, guys. If you guys have any questions in the next 5 minutes or so, we're gonna finish the chat really quickly about like just where we're going, and I'm going to ask. There's two things I was going to bring up because Rob's specialty is werewolves. We did in Werewolf the RPG, so I gotta ask: do you still game?
I haven't in a long time. I did a little bit in high school and in college. I actually kind of want to get my sons into it now that they're getting a little older.
It's like, yes, because it's a good bonding, right?
So I got them. I got my oldest son, I think, is the one who I'm going to be playing with more because my younger son, he isn't into it as much. But like my older son is he's got the same kind of interests I do. Like, he liked playing the Hero Quest board game that I got them into.
Nice.
And he loved the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings books. I read, after reading those books, he was inspired to make maps, which I did the exact same thing after I read them. So it's like I know he is a chip off the old block. And, I love my younger son. He and I have different things that we have in common as well. But it's like the nerdy stuff, like my older son and I think, can be able to, I think he'll be my gamer.
He's your gamer. You're probably your younger one's the problem solver.
He's more, I think he's going to be more, he's my artist. He's been, matter of fact, he asked, he basically for his birthday, he just wanted tablets and new markers. So I mean, like
I actually need to ask. I want to play with color now. Like I've gotten to the point with my drawing stuff that I'm actually like, I did a drawing of a girl with a bit of a crush on, and it's like it's actually pretty freaking good.
Nice.
Right, it was actually pretty good. It's like I looked at that, it's like that's pretty good. But what could I have done with color? Like what could I have done with some color, right? And yes, okay. Actually, I don't have tattoos either, guys. Just for one very simple reason, it's probably the most rebellious thing I can do at this point. Almost everybody has a tattoo. Almost everybody, right? So it's like at this point in my life, it's like if I got one. Also, I'm one of those crazy obsessed people. If I started down that road, I don't know if I'd stop, right?
So for me, like, this was my graduation gift to myself when I turned 18 and graduated high school. All of my tattoos, so I have like 4 tattoos, all of them I've drawn myself. So I won't put anybody else's drawings on my body. I basically give the tattoo to the artist and he applied it to my body. And, they all have meaning for me. So, and especially being in, like, I was in a band, I had hair down to my shoulders at one point. like I was a full on, rocker.
You were the metalhead. Like
I was until I started going bald. And then I was like, But, so, I mean, I even had like a drawing of a dragon with its wings spread out that I was going to put on my back and shoulders. But since the band didn't go like that way, it never happened.
Dragon Force homage. I got you. But
actually, it was part of a D&D.
Oh, fair enough. Totally. Could combine and whatever. It's all good. It's all good. No, D&D's cool. No, I brought up the gaming part because like gaming is great storytelling.
Oh yeah.
As well, and it's amazing. And also ironically, just because again, I just noticed this little pattern with you. You're a collaborator. You like collaborating with people. Like I think it's a big part of why you enjoy the creative process.
Yeah, I couldn't do it by myself. I mean, I'm sure if I had all the time in the world, but like for me, the part of it's like the being in it with them and digging into the trenches with. Like I always, with me, like my publishing company is Lone Wolf Comics because it usually has been just me to a point, and then it became more, and then that's when I opened up to say, hey, I actually have a wolf pack. You know what I mean? So like that's when I'm like why like my backers, my anybody on my email list, I'm like I refer to them as my pack. And my especially my collaborators, like they are a part of my pack. They're a part of my family, and being in that with them makes it all the better because we can share in that.
Absolutely. Someone asked an evil fun question here. An evil fun question. I'm not going to ask you to choose who's your favorite collaborator because I don't want to get you in trouble. Don't want to get you in trouble. Yeah, no, actually, you should check out, like, I'll show you his Kickstarter links when we get to the very end of the episode here, Book Nook. But yeah, he calls everybody's Wolfpack. Like, he has a Rob is very good at making his fans feel very inclusive. That's one of his actual strengths as both a person and, as a marketer too. It's good business, but it's also it's a big part of who he is. So, but I'm going to say this. I'm not going to have you choose your collaborator, but of everybody you've worked with, what's your favorite piece from all of them? Like Mog and Carlos. Like we'll go with Mog and Carlos specifically. So
okay, my favorite piece.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you to choose between them because honestly, that's not a fight you can win. So, but I'm never going to put you in a no-win situation. But I know there's there are things about like when you see an artist that you just see their stuff, you're like, wow, that pops, and you just know it, So what for you? It's that with both of them.
So for Carlos, my favorite thing that I think has popped the most is there's an issue 3 cover that Carlos did with Snowpaw, and am I able to share?
Yeah, go ahead.
How do I do it?
Well, you can if you guys. So what? Okay. So in a perfect world, you'd have like do you have a tablet or a phone that can link? Because I'll just send you the link that way. That'd be one way to do it. If you got a physical copy of it somewhere, that'd also be cool.
Yeah, I do actually.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I have one underneath. I have like a stack of like books underneath my desk here.
No worries. We will be right back. But first up, while he's going to get the book, I just want to thank everybody for stopping by. It's nice to see you all. My name's Josh. I write stuff, podcast too. This is my guest, Rob. I have a really cool week coming up. Rob, I have Sable Radio tomorrow. I have Stephanie Phillips, writer, Harley Quinn Thursday. So that's a really cool guest. Anyway.
Yes. So this is the cover that he did. And honestly, like I think probably is like the most, I think heroic, stunning, like almost Wonder Woman-esque, like picture of like she and for me, like I know like where Nightwolf is my main character, right? But Snowpaw is my favorite character that I've come up with. So for that, I think for me, like I think that was like to me just a very elegant, heroic looking, great. I mean, it's phenomenal, like what he did there.
Yeah.
And then he also on this one he did a remark here.
Oh wow, very cool. Yeah, she looks like she's trying to take someone's lunch money. Right? Yeah, I want to be in the way of that, right? Because it might be me. No, that's a really cool cover. So like when I back, am I getting that cover?
No, that's not in the
oh no, fair enough. It's all good. It's all good.
That one's because Carlos didn't do issue 3. That was actually a variant cover that he did later.
Okay, very cool. So how about Mog?
So I would have to say so far that painting that she did. And I don't have it on me, so
no. That's her.
Like, you remember what I'm talking about, though?
Oh yeah, I was there. It was
yeah.
Crap.
Yeah, so that painting that she did, I think by far is like my favorite thing that she's done so far. Though I do have her original character design that she did, like when we were kind of like first talking. It's completely different than that painting, but it's still, I mean, awesome. Like what she did.
I feel like if I were to put this, if I were to put this in there, Carlos is like hard rock, like hard, like his stuff's a little bit sharper.
Right.
Mom's is softer, but
Yeah.
no less amazing. Yeah. Oh, Mog's great. Mog is just so good. It's just like it's unbelievable.
But like I said, it's like my night and day. Like
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like,
well,
yeah, you can see the extreme, like differences in the two, and how they show them, and it's like, but it's still like so good, so good.
It's also really cool, like how like different people like have a different like answer to what a book looks like,
right? Yeah,
right, and
that's comics right there to a T.
Yeah, well, I think that's storytelling to a general T, not just comics, but all stories. We all have our own voice, and illustrators in particular, right? Again, they have their own styles, their own distinct. Like you will never see, like you can give Snowpaw to somebody else, and first off, they'd be looking at both of them, going, "What the hell am I doing here?" But the second thing they're going to go is, but the second thing is they'll come up with their own version of the character, and it'll still be that character in some recognizable way, but it'll also be something else, and you'll be like, "That's still really cool," and they'll do something like you never thought of. And I think that's an amazing thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's what makes art awesome. Not just not just like storytelling, just art. Like everybody's got their own voice, and it's as a result, that's what makes a story special. And that's what you bring to the table. It's like we were talking about, like you're writing a werewolf comic.
Yeah, which werewolves have been done,
but werewolves not like this. Not like this. Not by you. I mean, I think the last thing, and this is probably a good way to wrap up the quote unquote conversation part of this anyway, and let people, if they want to ask questions, is like we all bring something to the table. And comics, I think the thing about comics is writing is, I think, the more invisible part of it, because comics are a visual medium. By their definition, they are visual. But that doesn't mean when you look at your book and the voice, like you're in a lot of ways, you're the voice of the book.
Right.
They're what people see, but you are what they hear. So I mean, that's the mixture there. So I mean, so like your book, right, is your take on the whole genre, and it's your take, and I think that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, no, and I think that's like why I love, like, because you have these characters, these character arcs, or like even like the big two, like we were talking about how, like, they have their characters, right, and they've always had different writers do different voices and different takes on them. I think like being able to take a character and continue on their story, even if it's not the original person, that's what makes a good character. I think being able to go from point A to point B and then handing off for somebody to go B to C and so on and so forth, and still be able to be interesting. I think that
absolutely. No, it's just one of those. That's what makes it so cool. So I'm gonna give everybody here a minute. If you want to ask Rob any questions, we'll let you guys ask him away. If not, we'll get to the wonderful. Actually, I'll have a big question left over, and then we're gonna wrap it up. So give everybody a minute here. If there's anything you guys want to ask, do so.
Booknook said that she sees parallels with manga, which she's a huge fan of. So with my artists, they both are very they're Western and Eastern, like kind of a mishmash, if you will. They're like a perfect marriage in their own different styles, which is awesome too. Like like it's not the same, but like it's like that. I think that's what attracted me to both of their styles, is that like you can see a little bit of both Western and Eastern styles in there.
Comics, especially American English ones, seem to let artists have a world of difference in designs. I would go so far to say Bookmark that even I think the really good comic book illustrators, I mean, if you look at Mog and you look at Carlos, they both have art backgrounds. You can see it in how they tell their stories, right? Their interpretation, like in terms of the range of their style, is different, but the fundamentals.
Oh yeah.
The fundamentals are very, very, very conventional even there.
Each panel, like, it's art first. I mean, and I always say, I'm like, makes as long as you leave room for the word bubbles, I want to see a full background. You know what I mean? And I think that's what I love about both of them is that they're very like they see the full picture, and they're able to show that.
Yeah, but they're also both good storytellers. So they also know what's actually important in a shot.
Oh yeah.
And I think I think that's what makes, like, you can tell, like, someone like me who doesn't have a formal training, I would miss, like, there's gonna come a point in my own journey where I'm gonna be like, okay, I need to take art classes because I need to understand more about how this works. But it's like, but again, those design stuff, right? Those design things, right? A lot of it is like learning a language. It's like you're going to take the things that make it work, and you're going to discard the rest. I think the big difference between American and Japanese comics is American you are still required to have some design fundamentals, but there's a lot more permission to like throw them out in the face of what looks cool.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a difference between like picturesque and dynamic. I mean, you have to make it. I mean, you don't want to have like a perfect picture of something because like that's normal life, right? You want to have it still be dynamic and interesting, and and if you draw it in where it looks like it's supposed to, but yet dynamic, you've done it properly. It's in a more interesting way.
Exactly. So let's see. I'll ask while I have somebody else, because manga artists have it. I can answer this one a little bit. Because I did work with someone that did. The answer is a bit of both. It depends on how established the comic guild artist is. Some of them will hire out backgrounds. A good example of this is Lady Mechanica, right? Joe Benitez will very often get someone else to do the background, so it speeds up his ability to do the comic because he's incredibly detailed. But some people are very good at just doing things on their own. Good examples of that in comics today are, look up Riley Rossmo or Terry Moore. Both of them do their own background stuff, and they have a very and I picked both of those two in particular because if you've ever seen any comics by either of them, they're very distinct styles. So,
speaking of backgrounds and comic artists, a funny story that I found out recently, and I've always been a big Michael Turner fan with like Witchblade and Fathom, and I found out that when he first started, Mark Silvestri told him that he was like, you can use references. You don't have to just draw. Because I guess his backgrounds, his buildings were like really terrible until he like said you can use real things as references. He's like, you can use references.
Yeah, so, no, you almost like it's the things you don't think about, right? That just like, blow your mind. Oh my God, there's an easier way to do this.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, and sometimes like we all have those moments where it's just like, well, I need to find this way to say my main character crossed the bridge. Why don't you say main character crossed the bridge? There's a moment of thought. I feel sheepish. Right?
Yeah, sometimes when you're like trying to figure out a problem, it's not option A, it's not option B, it's option C. You know what I mean? Like you're like, oh yeah.
and sometimes the answers and sometimes the answer is like right in your face, and you never even knew it. It's like literally right there. It's there. You haven't. It just hasn't sunk in.
Right.
And we're all guilty of this.
Oh yeah.
I'm guilty of this anyway.
Oh yeah. I don't know how many times that like if there was a snake on my keyboard, it would bit me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, hi, obvious stuff. Okay, so I'm going to ask this fun question then, because I feel like you could. And I mentioned this earlier, and I'm just interested to see what you do. Comics is your love, but would you do a novel or a game?
I would actually. Matter of fact, in my midst of dabbling before the band, excuse me, There was a period where I started writing both a novel and a video game script, kind of in amongst like writing. So like whenever I was in junior high, going into high school, I had more spare time to myself before I started like hanging out with friends and before I got my license. I had a lot more free time. Let me just say that. After that, it was like I was never home, and so I got into writing. Matter of fact, part of issue 2 of Nightwolf was originally part of a game script that I put in. I started writing. I was inspired by Final Fantasy VII because of like the cinematics.
Oh
So
yeah.
it was like it was part of it was like the opening scene to the cinematic. Like the sun was going down, the moon was coming up, and they were going to this high school dance, and then like all of a sudden they're surrounded by like vampires and werewolves. Like, and you see like the eyes light up, and then it like cuts to like the opening like part of the game. It was like that's how I originally had wrote a section, and at that point, when I was kind of putting the script for Nightwolf together, I was like, you know what, this is a great part that I wrote years ago that I'm never going to use for a video game. So I was like, I'm so incorporating this.
Yeah, why not? Have some fun. It's also
Right?
cool. It's a cool storytelling plus. Love Final Fantasy VII. I'm a big. I still prefer 6 over it because I love that the bad guy won.
Okay.
But well, you did. You blew up the world halfway through the game. He blows up the world. It's actually part of the game. So it's like he wins that, and then what happens after is what makes that game really interesting, right? So, but no, going like no. I mean, yeah, there are things like we all do this where we all have that moment where it's like I got this great stuff I did years ago. The idea was good.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't work the way I imagined it would, but it did.
Yeah. And well, it's kind of the same with the novel too. Like I actually incorporate, like, so I started after I read all the Lord of the Rings and books, and again going back to like where I was talking about my son and getting making maps. When I did that, when I started doing that, I actually started a novel in my own like fantasy world, and I had all these deities, my versions of what like the Greek or mythology, gods. So I had my own kind of like in from the story that I also then incorporated into my Lone Wolf Comics universe that will come into play a little bit more, but they're like slightly mentioned throughout. But like as I open up my world, you'll see more of like that part that like I basically took all of my writing and I put them all like what I mean. Like I know I was like I'm never gonna do this, so let's bring it over
here. Yeah, no, it does happen, right? It's just like yeah, I feel like you're happier in like a comic / gamer role, but I'd be curious to see what kind of novel you did down the road. Maybe we'll try that again sometime.
Well, I did. So I totally it was more it wasn't fantasy. It wasn't. I actually wrote I started to write a book or a first chapter about a friend of mine who passed away when I was in college. So I still have that chapter, and I kind of always want to kind of try to go back to it. It's totally different from anything else I've ever done, because it's more like a real life situation. And I think that, if I do it the way that I envision, if I actually put my mind to it and sit down and do it, it would be, I think, a great novel. But, again, it's just one of those things. It's like I have to focus on what I can with the limited time I have.
That's part of it. I mean, sometimes you need to let an idea simmer. I've had an idea in my head for about 20 years. It's still not ready for me to tell that story yet because it's especially like it sounds like a friend you really cared about.
Yeah.
And you want to do that justice.
And I didn't want to just throw that out there.
And I feel this is a guess. I could be totally off base here. Yeah, you got a lot on your plate, and yeah, you're proud of everything you're doing right now. But something like that, something like that, how to put this? Because you care so much about that and doing it justice, it's also about getting to what you feel is the right level of expectation for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Tell that story right.
Yeah.
And you might not be there right this minute, but the fact that it's been, I'm going to say 20 years, right? Or approximately
16.
Yeah, approximately 16. And you still are thinking about that friend, thinking about that story. One day you will tell that story, but when you're ready to.
Yeah.
John, I would actually go so far to say that it's a necessity. It's almost like learning another language, and because ultimately at the end of the day, like we're telling stories, and the more mediums we play in, the more tools we get. So we tell a story. What ends up happening though, and this is like a cautionary tale about that, is sometimes you get to the point it's like, what's the best tool to tell this story? And sometimes you'll stump yourself. Sometimes.
Well, and I think too, like if you do multiple genres, it shows your breadth of like, of what you can do. If you pigeonhole yourself and because if you look at it like from a Tom Hanks kind of situation, like he started out as a comedian, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now look at him. He's well known for all these different kind of genres, like that he's acted in. Same with like Stephen King, like he's mostly known as a horror writer, right? Well, he's done, Stand By Me wasn't necessarily a horror, it was kind of like a coming of age situation where, like he actually changed his pen name to explore other like genres as well.
Yeah. And you look at what Stephen King writes today, it's not really so much horror. He actually writes fantasy more than he writes horror.
Yeah, exactly. It's totally like, definitely changed like overall.
Yeah, well, you evolve as a creator over time. Yeah, big time. But Mr. Rob, I think we've had a wonderful discussion today. What do you think?
I think so.
Yeah,
so. We had a great time.
Yes, yes, Stephen does all the time. But it's not just horror. I would make the argument, Doris, that Stephen King is probably the greatest fantasy writer that no one realizes is a fantasy writer. My reference to that is The Dark Tower.
Oh yeah, the gunslinger like tales, just
they're my favorite. I still think, in my own opinion, Wizard and Glass is still the best thing he's ever written. That's my opinion. So that's me. So book fan there. But Rob, dude, I am incredible. Like I discovered you through Mog, but it seems to me that you're doing very well, and this is bad. Like a dream come true for you, and and you're creating a cool little audience. You're writing some excellent Marvel stories, and you're expanding your universe. I mean, that is what every comic creator hopes for with their own properties, ultimately. So, what's next?
So next, I'd say Snowpaw coming down the pipeline. So after issue 5 has been given to everybody who backed the last Kickstarter, Mog and I and Bruno were almost done with the first issue of Snowpaw, and then it's going to be then we'll be doing them simultaneously. So we'll have Nightwolf after, be rotating until the world continues, and if I can either have somebody take on something, maybe I'll bring out one of my other titles. So.
Yeah, so you're at the point where you're going to be Kickstarting regularly now throughout the year. How many issues do you normally do with Nightwolf?
So with Nightwolf, you mean like Kickstarters or?
Like Kickstarter. How many Kickstarter appearances do you usually do in a year?
Yeah, so I've done the most I've done so far is 2 in a year. I did one. So starting out, I did 1 a year, and then now I'm up to 2 a year. I'm aiming for 3 this year, but I don't, because of delays with art and printing delays, I don't think I'll get to 3, but maybe next year. Because
I got a hunch you're going to do 4 next year. There's something that I actually think you're at that point now where it might be 1 of 4, which is to do a Nightwolf like 1, and then if we're 2, it'll be a Snowpaw, and then if we're 3 or whatever that.
Yeah, I mean, I plan on rotating. So like after Snowpaw 1, it'll be Nightwolf 6.
Yeah.
Snowpaw 2. Nightwolf 7. I'm going to keep it because that way I can keep my art teams like rotating in the circle. Like, so I'm at different points with them, that way I'm not waiting on one book to come out for another one to come out. So I'm going to keep it in that kind of a rotation. Just
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
things going.
I get that feeling. Now, obviously our team's depending, but yeah, you're definitely going to become a much more regular thing in comics, which is really cool, man. That's really really cool.
Thank you.
So, for those people watching, those people listening, one last thing. But no, yeah, check out the book you want to check out. The two I would recommend are The Gunslinger, which we mentioned here. The other one is that I think he'd be really really cool to watch. It's my favorite one shot of his, Eyes of the Dragon. That one is a really cool fantasy.
Yeah, I'll have to check that one out. I haven't read that one myself.
That's all. It's an oldie. It's an oldie, but it's good. It's actually quietly. It's a young adult book. It's really good. It's actually really good. I'm not. Tommyknockers is fun, right?
Yeah.
Tommyknockers is fun, but Eyes of the Dragon is a little bit of a gem, and no, most people don't. Yeah, it's kind of like so. But anyways, so your Kickstarter you just finished, so you got Nightwolf 5. So when do you think? So if people want to find you, how can people find you?
So you can find me at Lone Wolf Comics at lonewolfcomics.com, or I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Lone Wolf Comics. You can also you can pick up the past issues at lonewolfcomics.com. There's a shop there. Also, if you want to grab the pre-order for issue 5 or pick up all the books there as well, you can go to lonewolfcomics/Nightwolf and lonewolfcomic.com/Nightwolf, and that'll take you to the pre-order page as well.
Yes. So guys, if you like horror, you like werewolves, you like urban fantasy, right? I don't know. You like right? This is so Nightwolf was the slash.
It was So it was lonewolfcomics.com/Nightwolf.
There you go.
There you go. Yep.
So and right here, come check him out. He's got a really cool series. I backed it myself. I can't wait to actually read the issues somewhere down the road. And this is my conversation with Rob Multari. I want to thank Rob for coming on the show. This was a lot of fun. Nice to meet you. We never actually formally talked up until this point, so I guess we had a fun little conversation here.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
So tomorrow, Sabo Arabia, Diane Morrison will join the show at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So guys, I hope you guys watch and listen and subscribe however you guys do it. My book, Alice Zero, is nominated for the Elgin Award from the Science Fiction and Poetry Association, and it's kind of really cool. Alice 1 comes out in November, so that's going to be cool. Hit the subscribe to my channel, subscribe to my YouTube. I'm trying to beat Nita and Meredith. I'm gaining back on them because I forgot all about everything I've been working on. I'm going to catch them. I'm going to catch them all. Until then. Yes, that's right. I want to be the very best. We're not going to do that song here. But before we go, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have yourselves a great one.
Good night, everybody.